the Buddha was against psychedelics, apparently. According to every Buddhist that I've talked to, especially here in Thailand. I've been coming here for the past 10 years, and Buddhism, the first religion that truly woke me up spiritually, that put me on that path of wanting to enlighten myself, to alleviate pain and suffering through spiritual practices, for being more connected, for learning about the nature of reality. Eventually got me down to the psychedelic track. You know, it's funny because in Thailand there's a lot of mushrooms. Basically every Push Makundi shop, they're gonna have some under-the-counter mushroom chocolates or something. And there are even elephants, and whose poo are born these magical fungi which change your consciousness and tell you what a naughty boy you've been, but this is how you be a good boy. And most people from the West that I talk to who are into psychedelics tend to go towards the train thought of, yeah, all mainstream religions are probably tied in with the psychedelic experience to one degree or another. I don't know if I agree or disagree necessarily, but you got to be careful of just assuming that because you've had this crazy psychedelic trip, that it's like, oh, it's impossible to get here without substances. But that's not true either. Perhaps there are people who've gone down deeper planes of existence purely from meditation. I don't know. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not a master meditator where I do it hours and hours and hours on the daily, trying to be enlightened. I meditate and pray enough to detach myself from negative thoughts and live a more free life. Right? I'm doing it from that point. Whereas like the Buddhist monk, it's a lot more dedication. I respect that too. I love being in the presence of monks. I'm not an expert on Buddhism, but what I do know is that the Buddha was against intoxication and the consumption of any drug that alters your state of consciousness. But where I stand on this is, like, I feel like at least the ancients would have been aware of psychedelics, right? Like, how could you not be? Especially when you have mushrooms, for example, just growing up everywhere. Especially if you got the species that like turn blue. How could you not be attracted to that? Even in 2024, if I see a mushroom that turns blue, I'll be like, whoa, what's that? So imagine 2,000 years ago. So it's like, whoa, what is that? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that people didn't know about it. But then why weren't they written about specifically? Why didn't the Buddhists, like, it's like the Bible, right? The Old Testament. They talk about pharmakia. And then people just assume that, oh, that just includes psychedelics. And I'm not sure if it does or it doesn't, but if ancient religions were so against it, why not just make it super clear? Why leave this to interpretation, like drugs or intoxication? Because that could mean anything. Does coffee count then, you know? But the Buddha, even though he was against changing your state of consciousness via substances, what it seems, I still respect him. I like the chillness of Buddhism. But at the end of the day, who knows what the Buddha really said? Who knows what Jesus really said? Then we go back to the same conversation that we've been having since the beginning of religion. And that is what they said really what they said? And then that's a whole different topic. From the Buddhist perspective, psychedelics can only give you a glimpse of what's possible, but they don't actually get you any closer to that spiritual path. Whereas meditation, it's a lot more sustainable over time, and it's something that you can anchor in your lifestyle. Whereas psychedelics can, well, it's a bit of a roll of the dice. Sometimes it can destabilize you. But I'd be curious to see how psychedelic experiences would have been 2,000 years ago, before the intense programming that has happened since. It's not saying that people weren't programmed before, but I feel like now it's like we just live in a completely different era. You know, we're like worlds apart from the ancients. In a lot of ways, some ways, not at all, right? But go to any Buddhist temple, man, dude, especially this one in Shanghai. Like, isn't that one of the most psychedelic things that you've ever seen? And if none of these guys were on substances and purely getting to these states through meditation, I mean, that's pretty impressive. But I think psychedelics as a Western concept has definitely seeped in to the Eastern world. And even with ayahuasca and the Amazon, like, because in the beginning, based on my research, shamans were the ones who would drink the medicine, not the patient. Even if the patient did drink the ayahuasca, it wouldn't have the chacruna or the DMT containing plant, or very little of it. It wasn't until Terence McKenna and his brother Dennis went to the Amazon and told him, maybe you should put some chacruna and infuse the DMT molecule into your consciousness. And they're like, all right, oh, cool. And it's the same thing. Oh, little kitty. Meow. Meow. Aww. I'm sorry, little buddy. I wish I could take you with me. Come with me. And the same thing with Thailand, even when it comes to psychedelics, like a lot of the mushroom shakes and things of that nature that they sell here, that's been so infamously popular, that was brought in by Western people. And I'm just letting you guys know this because this is something that I personally observed over the years, is this kind of disconnect between traditional Thai Buddhist culture and the kind of Western world and their view of it. And we tend to project a lot of our beliefs. And I don't know, like, what is Buddhism really about? I mean, you know, outside of what it tells you on Wikipedia, I can't tell you that. I don't know if there's a true origin story, or if the texts are being corrupted and shifted over time and it's a game of Chinese whispers. I don't know. What I do know is that Buddhism as a philosophy can be very useful to calming your monkey mind. The monkey mind that just goes crazier and crazier over time with all this stimulation, social media, and you know the world that we live in. I don't have to lecture you on that. You know, mate. You know. And so whether the Buddha was against psychedelics or not, maybe it was a similar thing of Carl Jung, beware of unearned wisdom. There's definitely some profound truth to that, but I also know that every truth is a half-truth. And who knows where we'll go from here. Maybe we'll ask Buddha in the afterlife.
Meditation brings wisdom. Lack of meditation leaves ignorance. Know well what leads you forward and what holds you back, and choose the path that leads to wisdom. My name is Buddha. Subscribe.